everyone. Steve Lennox, Lennox on Baseball, live stream chat on the X, on our YouTube Lennox on Baseball channel, and via our Facebook pages as well. We are going to be visiting with former big leaguer Jimmy Gobble. Fingers crossed in the next couple of minutes. Jimmy is working towards getting on board. Give you a little history before Jimmy joins us. Drafted first round, 43rd overall pick in 1999. Out of John Battle High School in Bristol, Virginia. So he drafted in 1999. Jimmy spent the 2000 season, his first full year in pro ball in Burlington in the Midwest League, then joined the Wilmington Blue Rocks. That was the team that I was broadcasting for back in the early 2000s. And he was part of the 2001 Wilmington Blue Rocks team that went all the way to the championship series, lost in 5 games to the Salem Avalanche. Final 3 games were in Salem, Virginia, not that far from where Jimmy grew up in Salem, Virginia, just a little bit west of Salem in the beautiful Commonwealth of Virginia. Jimmy made his major league debut with the Kansas City Royals in 2003, and I didn't realize it. I was looking at his baseball reference page over the weekend. I did not realize that Jimmy actually went from Double-A to the majors, which was very interesting. So just giving a little background on Jimmy Gobble, who joins us right now. There he is. Just giving a little history on you. I will apologize for any issues that you had. I've got to figure this out. It's people smarter than me. But Jimmy Gobble, thanks so much for joining us here on our Lennox on Baseball chat. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you, Steve?
Doing well. Great to see you. We're going to hit on a lot of different topics here, but kind of give us an idea right now as to where you're at as you're about to celebrate a birthday next month.
I am turning 43. I've got 3 wonderful boys, been married going on 19 years. Once I retired from baseball, I came back to where I grew up and really just been enjoying kind of the Bristol life, the slower life, and, coaching a little baseball. Working a little bit. We started our own firm here recently. We'll probably get more into that later. But yeah, so just staying busy and enjoying kids. And, my kids do baseball and, they're scattered all over the place right now with it being summer. And, we're just trying to keep up playing zone defense.
How did you get, you graduate from John Battle High School. You've coached there now. You just wrapped up year number 14. How did you get involved and coaching at the high school level? How'd you get involved in coaching travel ball?
Well, so when I first retired, I didn't have any intentions on coaching professionally, collegiately, or high school. And, I just really enjoyed that first year of retirement. And one of the assistant coaches at John Battle got sick in February, right as the season was getting ready to start. So one of the administrators had called me and was hoping I would jump in on a temporary basis. And I said yes. And once I got in, I truly enjoyed the process and understanding what they were trying to do and building some character life issues along, with the journey of baseball. And, just really kind of that's how it all happened. And the gentleman, he got sick with cancer and he wasn't able to come back. And I held that position for about 7 years and then became the head coach.
So now coaching your oldest, how does a left-hander develop 3 young men who are on their way in their baseball journey who are all righties?
Well, I tell you what, I tried everything possible to make them left-handers. I really did. So I'm actually coaching 2 now. My middle one was a freshman this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so Porter is the oldest, and then Palmer, and then I've got a little one, Patton. But I was able to coach both of them this year. And, with Palmer, I actually put I put a glove on his right hand, hoping he would just develop. And he would take it off and throw it, and then he would catch it with that same hand. Porter, we didn't really have any intent. I was still playing ball pretty heavily then, and, it didn't really matter. And he developed a left-handed swing because of a left-handed golf club. He would go out there and just well at the yard, the ground, balls. He actually hit when we were in Kansas City. He was swinging a golf club in the house and he busted up a TV when he was little. Maybe like 3. So he developed that swing, and then Palmer kind of followed suit. And my little one, who he was, he's little, and he kept kind of bucking me. I'd turn him around and hit him left-handed, and then when I wasn't around, he would hit right-handed. I mean, he hit all the time. He still hits all the time. He'll hit for hours, just left, right. Anything he can do. So he actually switch hits, but none of them throw left-handed. They all do fairly well with the pitching gene, and competing in baseball, and they play basketball as well. And my little one's gotten into golf, which is kind of funny.
Okay.
He's pretty good. He's my other two aren't happy that he's a better golfer than them at 11. So
they're competitive.
Very much so. Yes. Sometimes a little over the top, but I don't know where they get that from.
I'm glad you put that smile on your face. We know where they got that from. Where do the 3 Ps come from?
It just kind of happened.
Yeah.
When it started with Porter, which, obviously, you want to name your kids something unique and different. And, how we landed on Porter, Julie, we had the name books, we had it all, and we were kind of going through, and she had said Porter after about 50 names. So she kept, no. And she said Porter. And I was like, Porter. And we just walked around the house saying it for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and it just kind of stuck. So.
And you went from there.
And then with Palmer, once we got 1 P, we're like, okay, we're going to do this. And we wanted to be as different as we were. And, and then when Patton came, we were like, oh gosh, what are we going to do now? And we landed on Patton. So they're all fairly unique and different.
So I read an interview that you did with Ball 9. I think it was from last year, and grew up and similar for me of, I know a lot about the Cubs and Braves because they were on the superstations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I know you're on social media. I don't know. And you shared that, Ryan Sandberg was one of your favorite players. Did you see recently, being a high school coach, being a former big leaguer, being a travel ball coach, did you see recently where he was part of a travel organization and a coach on the other side, maybe, somebody like me who, never played, professional ball, college ball, basically was, dismissing Ryan Sandberg, a Hall of Famer. Did you happen to come across that?
No. I do my best to stay far away from social media and all the negativity that it can represent. There are great aspects to social media, and if I'm being honest, it should be used for positivity and encouragement and the right things. But, we live in I don't want to say it's different. It's just odd. So I kind of, I create my own direction. I don't let, no, I didn't see that. But now I did hear a little bit about it. And I didn't really catch what all was going on. I'm going to go back and research that and look at it.
I think basically, and maybe you've come across guys like this, and what you're looking at across the dugout from time to time. When you get to a field, when you get to a ballpark. But basically, the guy I think was, hey, I know more than you. I'm dismissing, your career, your Hall of Fame career. This is travel ball. You're out of your element. I'm in my element. That might be the best way to sum it up.
I mean, and if you run across former big leaguers who have played in the game, and obviously I'm no Ryan Sandberg, but he was my favorite player. And I mean, I have to imagine he played over 15 years in the big leagues, and he was a position player. So the amount of games that he actually, was involved in probably makes him a extremely high knowledge travel baseball coach, Major League Baseball coach, etc. So for that person to say that is quite odd, because when you're in situations, and this is what I wish some people would understand. It's great that the game of baseball is being taught specifically in individuality, right? Like, so you can teach a kid how to play baseball, how to grow, how to be strong. But the tangibles of understanding the game and understanding what baseball should represent in life, and the negativity and the challenges that kind of come along with that. I wish coaches would understand it's not all about them. It's about the players and the lessons. And if Ryan Sandberg is coaching a travel ball team, I'm sure he's giving tremendous value and life lessons in what he's trying to represent, because he's putting himself out there. He doesn't have to coach.
Right.
He's trying to help those kids he's coaching. And, young men in their 30s and 40s, they might not have achieved what they thought they could have achieved. And maybe they think at this point, this is their moment to speak or to do whatever. It's, I try to, when I'm out at these venues, I try to be very quiet, but, focus on our team, very encouraging. But, I had an incident 2 weeks ago where I'm calling a timeout in a baseball game. It's a travel baseball game. These kids are 15 years old, right? It doesn't matter who wins or loses. And I call a timeout, and I don't keep a stopwatch on the time limit of baseball because, as I've said before, there's no time limit in baseball, right? You play the game in the big picture as it seems. So this kid had just gotten out previously, and he was very upset. And the kid's a good player. I think he's going to play college baseball. I call a timeout. Well, apparently the time limit was close, and the coaches on the other side are just chirping at me. And I look at the umpire. I'm like, am I allowed to call a timeout? He said, yeah. And I said, okay. So I talk to the kid. I tell him, hey, this is a repeat experience, right? This is why baseball is so great. Focus on your at-bat, what you can do, and how you can control it. Because he let anger control the at-bat based on a bad swing, a bad call, etc. So as I'm walking back, I was like, thank you for allowing me to have that teaching moment with this kid, and you're worried about winning a baseball game. And at the time, I think we're up by 1. But again, I mean, in travel baseball, you're putting a group of kids together to play a baseball game that you don't practice with. So if you don't practice with kids, right, you're just trying to help them in game. So, you see a lot, and I say it quite often. I'm going to write a book.
I hope you do.
That I've come across. I think many big leaguers probably feel the same way, because typically when you engage with someone that's been in baseball as long as I have, or as long as someone else has, on the professional level, they tend to keep it in a much better perspective, which is always nice.
Have you read Mike Matheny's book?
I have. Now, I read it a long time ago when my kids were just beginning, and I absolutely loved it. And it helped me with many lessons along the way with my kids. And, we kind of, I've always had a rule, as I, we got one kid that's quiet. We got one kid that is a competitive, just crazy person. We got another kid that's competitive, but not, he gets a little, we have 3 different phases that we have to deal with. But I've come to the point to where, once we're in the car and we drive home, when we get out of the car, it's over, right? I don't want to talk about whether it's positive or negative. We just want to focus on the next steps. And we say it a lot, is be where our feet are, right? So from game to game, day to day, be where your feet are. And, if I could give any advice to young kids, young coaches, be where your feet are, because we set too many expectations, futuristic of, hey, I want to do this in college, or you're not even in college. You're sophomore in high school and you're chasing 90. Why? Right? Just be where your feet are and put yourself in a competitive environment to grow. And if a coach is only wanting to win, I don't know that that's probably the right place for someone who has future plans in college baseball, even professional. Like go where someone is willing to teach you about life and what baseball represents.
And what do you, on that social media realm, I'm sure you've at least seen the videos of, guys chasing velocity, full gyms during the off season, guys hitting, a PR, a personal record on a number. And we'll get into your pro career here in our time in Wilmington together in 2001. And I'll start right there. You were a teenager in 2001 at the advanced day level. Yes. You weren't a thrower. You were a pitcher at 19 years old in pro ball.
But it was here, right? I didn't have the best fastball. I probably had an exceptional secondary pitch that I could command, which now that I'm older, I realize how unique that was. But competing with a fastball, I mean, and for the people watching, I threw a 4-seam fastball. I threw a curveball, and I had a terrible changeup. It wasn't any good. Thank you, Larry Carter, for teaching me everything about baseball and allowing me the opportunity to develop a changeup in Kansas City Royals organization. But I got to the big leagues with a fastball, 4-seam fastball, not a 2-seam, not a cutter, a curveball, and a changeup. So it was kind of funny how, at 18, I was pitching in Wilmington, and I actually got to pitch against the Kansas City Royals. I think it was opening day. It was like an inter squad, whatever, and they were probably tired, and I was fortunate enough to get to pitch, but I was so nervous, and I don't think I'd ever seen that many people in a venue. My parents are there, it's just, and I didn't realize what was in front, but again, as a fierce competitor as I was, it was hell or high water. I was going to succeed. And, I remember just putting all that energy towards competing, and it worked out. But yeah, I never really threw much in the off season. And I say this a lot, and, even in the baseball world, as you go around and you watch a lot of players, you look for that it factor. And when you see someone on a mound or in the box and they have it, it's that gritty desire just to compete. You follow that. Whether they throw 84 or 92, that's irrelevant, in my opinion. Now, I'm not in the professional side, so I'll just kind of leave it on the amateur side. But, that's kind of what myself looks for in competing.
You mentioned Larry Carter.
Love that man.
September. You guys, first 2 games of the championship series. So let's go. Before we go there, you mentioned that Royals game. Was that in Wilmington? Was that like the exhibition before the season got underway? Okay, so I think they were opening up the season in Philadelphia, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. So, and we basically were, their warm up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you remember Raul Ibanez hitting a home run over the scoreboard in right field?
No, I don't. But that's surprising.
So you remember that ballpark at the time?
Yeah.
For all those years of Wilmington, it was known as a pitcher's ballpark.
Absolutely. We call it, it's huge.
Yep. So Ibanez hit I don't know who it was against. It wasn't against you, but a lefty batter hit it over the scoreboard in right center field. And our general manager was like, I've been here the entire time of this field. I've never seen somebody hit the ball there. But when I bring up the fact that was a pitcher's ballpark, a few years later, Wilmington went to an affiliate as a Red Sox affiliate, right? And their guys were giving up home runs in this ballpark. It was the launching pad.
Really?
And they're like, we thought this was a pitcher's ballpark. And somebody said the wrong line in front of the wrong guy. He's like, yeah, if you've got pitchers. But it was a pitcher's ballpark for the most part. They turned it into a hitter's park in their 2 years of being affiliate.
And Kansas City did a really good job with their minor league affiliated teams of putting really good pitchers in Wilmington. And it was built as a building block. And now I don't know how the tiers are structured, but when you started at low A, typically a lot of the college guys would skip that level and they would come right to high. And, Wilmington, in the 3, 4, 5 years that I was around in the minor league, they were always top notch and really always in first and chasing that title. And it was just really cool. It was a great environment to play. I love Wilmington. Still this day, I talk to my kids about the experiences I got to experience there, specifically with the championship, the host family, the team, the manager, LC, and he didn't like the fact I probably call him Larry, but but that whole environment was so unique and so cool. It was a really fun year.
So again, going back, just sharing a little bit, LC is driving his car. Jeff Garber is driving his car down to Salem, Virginia. And I'm driving a player's car. I don't remember who it was. But they were going to go home from Salem. So they asked if I would drive the car down there and not go on the bus. So we left after game 2 of that championship series. And I shared this with Matt Birch because I think Birch pitched in maybe game 1 or game 2.
Yeah.
And we're not on our cell phones. We didn't have the Bluetooth, all that. We actually had walkie-talkies. And that's a trek. So well after midnight, we're all driving. checking in once in a while. And I'm just listening to LC and Garbs go back and forth. And I really do feel like I'm almost getting choked up here. First, they're talked about Birchie. And then LC and his drawl over a walkie-talkie talking about you. And the pride of what that man had. And you guys, just with that team, but the guys that he had overall, and basically he said, hey, we got a big leaguer going for us. We're going to be okay. And he's going to be a big leaguer, talking about you. And it was a movie moment for me because after he said it, no one overtalked it. I was just listening to the two of them. And we were keeping each other awake. But it's great for someone like me who Garber is a friend to this day. LC, I could probably reach out to and say hello. We pick up like it was yesterday. But the relationship and the understanding of what those guys and Mike Mason and other people in the organization did for you, all these years later, it's not exaggerated. When you say those things with sincerity, it makes me know that I was around good people, and that was highlight for me.
Oh, I mean, it gives me chills just hearing it because, in the world that I live in, even though I'm coaching baseball, and I've developed those type of relationships with some of the high school, side of it. Being around those men at such a young, impressionable age, for myself, they were as good as it gets. Seriously, LC busted his tail for 25 plus years to get back, to Kansas City in the bullpen and to do what he did there. But he was such an impressionable part of not only my pitching career, but my life and how I see things, how I view things, and how I value things. And Garbs, I will tell you this, he is one of the best managers from that particular year. He was hard. He was specific. He was direct. He knew what he wanted, and he worked as hard as us or harder.
Yeah.
At helping us chase that, because the first half of the year, you remember, it was fairly easy, right? We had all the talent.
Yep.
The second half of the year, we didn't have the talent, right? We just had the coaching staff and their heart and what they put into it. They coached us and we were probably college kids, right? Around that age, for the most part, right? They coached us like a team. It wasn't the individuality of what minor league can represent. It was a specific core group of coaches that had value in winning. And they took that and I remember being out there with Garbs and we're doing all the crazy PFPs and I'm a kid. It didn't really bother me. I had the energy, but I remember those college guys, and I'm not going to mention names, but they were getting so pissed. And, and eventually we came to terms with this. We're like, hey, we're not very good. We have to do this to win. And once we all bought into that and we're doing this 30-minute PFP and, Wilmington's not super hot, but nevertheless, it's, game, 110, 142.
You're in August.
Come on, Garbs. What are we? But once we bought into it and we knew we had to fight just to hold on, it made us different. It made me different. It made me understand, how to work to win. And it was, you even talk about the strength coach, the trainer, the bus trips, the specifics of everything. It was just such a cool. And I will say, Birchie and Corey Hart, those two, and they had probably experienced some winning. They were a little bit older. They had experienced what it was like to be on a team and be able to chase something. I remember having a team meeting and they were specifically talking about that when we were getting ready to kind of lose that first place. We'd just been losing a little bit. And I remember them talking about that and, the understanding of, hey, we need to kind of get it together and focus on us collectively. But it was a very fun year. A year I probably talk about more than I do even in the big leagues because those men were so impressionable in my life. So it was cool.
Was it 2001, 2002, high A and double A?
Mm-hmm.
Were you expecting to be promoted either year, or did you understand that with the age you were and your development process for you as an individual that, you needed a full year at each level?
It was expected.
Yeah.
Right. I knew kind of the pecking order. And at the time I was so young, and this might sound odd, and I'm still this way to this day. I never thought about playing in the big leagues. Right. I only wanted to be where I was. And I enjoyed the camaraderie of being a teammate and what that represented. So in 2002, I kept getting hurt. And I didn't really know why. And it was just, it was uneventful, really. But the following year, I'd had some shoulder trouble in 2002, and I tore my groin multiple times, and it just kept. So in 2003, that's kind of when things, I started to expect something to take place if I could do my job well enough. Well, the first 2 months I did pretty well, and I didn't get caught up. And Kansas City was doing well, and and I was a little bitter. And I probably shouldn't have been, right? Like there was no need. I still needed more development. And I remember LC talking to me about cleaning up some directional stuff with my mechanics and developing a changeup, which, I was still working on. And I remember when I found, right, so I had a mechanical flaw that would kind of force my direction off. And, I wasn't as consistent enough as I needed to be to pitch in the big leagues. LC wasn't telling me that directly. He was telling me that indirectly. So we were working on getting through that. And once I figured those 2 points out, that's when the call took place. So it's kind of funny how that happened. They waited, and they should have, because I wasn't ready. And even in 2003, I probably still wasn't ready because of my age, but I could compete with just about anyone because I wasn't afraid of much when I got on the mound. So, and I remember when I got called up in 2003, and Brian Sanchez gave me some good advice on, when you get there, just suck it all in, right? Like just step up and down, look at it, take a deep breath, and then do what you do. And still to this day, I use that advice with kids who are in a pressure game or, up, down. But it really worked for me, and it helped me to enjoy that moment.
Jimmy, you're segueing beautifully here as we hit on a lot of different things, but I didn't realize it until the other day of looking at your Baseball Reference page. You went from AA to the big leagues.
Yeah.
So your big league debut, August 3rd, at home in Kansas City against the Rays, the Devil Rays at that point in time, 6 scoreless innings. Was it the day before? Was it a few days before? Tell us the story about how you got you were told that you're going to the big leagues from Wichita.
Well, we were starting that. So remember in Wichita when they had that World Series there, and it lasted.
You'd be on the road for a long time.
Yeah, so it was like I think it was a 14, 18-day turn, right? So we had everything packed up. And I actually think we didn't even have our place anymore. Me and Sanchi we'd kind of moved out, and we were saving a little money. And so he had his car packed. I had my Jeep just packed, right? Because I had a little Jeep. And so we packed for the trip, and we're in Tulsa. And I'm scheduled to start, and I've been pitching really well. And it was becoming, I don't want to say easy, but it was becoming comfortable. Right. The routine, the process. I was on a roll. And in Tulsa, I was doing the chart. And as you do the chart, you get pretty good. And, I was doing the chart. So I turned it in, and, we're in that little locker room, and LC, one of the players come to get me. And like, man, you screwed up the chart. Like you've done something to the radar gun, or you've done something because coaches want to see you. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, come on, no. So I go in there, and I'm a little like, on edge because, I'm going to have to fight for my point. Like I didn't mess anything up, blah, blah, blah. And they start talking to me about the chart and the radar gun. And I'm like, what are you all talking about? And then, they tell me, and I honestly couldn't believe it, because we'd been following Kansas City because they were on a roll.
Yeah.
So it was, when I say it was surreal, it was surreal. And for the people around me to be so genuine and caring. And that team, we were competing for a top spot. And I think I was top probably 5 in the ERA. So we were chasing a title as well. And I remember thinking like, man, I'm leaving these guys, right? Like I'm leaving. And it was for something else, which was perfectly fine, but they were all excited. And, I think my last meal as a minor leaguer was at the Village Inn and somewhere in Tulsa. Me, Sanchi, and a couple other guys were just sitting there talking about the experience. And, people don't realize the minor league life and how simple and family oriented it really is. But when I got that call, they brought me up on Saturday night. So you get there and you start feeling everything. And I'll be honest with you, it was borderline overwhelming because I had never experienced a Major League Baseball game ever. So pitching was pretty much one of the only things I was probably good at. So I just wanted to kind of keep it as simple as, just go pitch. Well, Saturday night, that place is just packed. It's rocking, right? Like, and I've got the turnaround game and I didn't sleep, and nor should I, right? Like maybe 2 hours. I wake up and, I'm just like, well, here we go. Like, and I promise you, when I got to that bullpen, there was nothing working. I couldn't throw a fastball in the zone. I couldn't throw a secondary pitch. I didn't know what, I'm walking to pitch in a big league baseball game in a place, like I said, people don't realize now these kids get to play in major league stadiums. They get to go,
right.
That didn't really take place. Right. So I'd been to Camden Yards for, what was it? The East Coast, whatever. So we had done a tryout there. That was the only field that, I'd ever been like, been to a major league. So when I get there and I'm doing everything and I get on the mound, I remember what Sanchi said. And even though I hadn't thrown a ball near the freaking plate, I just backed up and, and the Devil Rays they were a good lineup, but it allowed me a little leeway, right? It wasn't the Red Sox. It wasn't the Yankees. So I remember thinking to myself, I've just got to be me. Right. And I was a fiery competitor. I didn't know anything different. So from that point, it started. And I think I give up a first. I think somebody got a hit, and then they laid down a sack bunt, and the bunt was legit, right? And it's on the first base side, and for a lefty, I couldn't get around it and still throw him out because I think it was Julio Lugo. I think that don't.
Okay.
And I have to get around it, and I have to do like this jump throw to first base, and I'm like, okay, here we go. There's a runner at second, right? So automatically you go from, 85% to 100%, right? It's just balls to the wall. Let's get this done. And, you're facing 3, 4, 5. And, I just, from that point on, it was nothing but let's compete. And I didn't turn that off. So that's kind of the whole, big league story. But
what was it like that night celebrating that first start and a win?
Well, we had a road trip. So
okay.
we were heading. So, it was an older team, right? So, I had bus duty. I had beer duty. I had, Steve, I didn't have a suit, right? Like,
okay.
I didn't have a suit. So, I'm getting just busted, right? I've got to have this dress and then, and I'm sweating still. And, so it was crazy. But when, and when you're on a plane, I'd never really been on a chartered plane. So, you're getting, you walk on, you got food. You can order food. You can get a drink if you want, right? And then you have dessert. And I'm just like taking all that in. I'm like, yes. Like, so, I think I want to say we were heading to Chicago and it was a family trip. So I think the family was on there. So it was a little more controlled, right? It wasn't. And we go. I went out, and I want to say I don't even remember who. It might have just been me and like one. But anyway, so I just kind of go down there and I just kind of celebrate alone. As a baseball player, you kind of travel, whatever, and that team was old and I was really young and didn't really have.
You were just of age to buy the beer and get the beer.
I was. Yeah, I was. So, so it was actually pretty simple. And the next day, we're in Chicago and, we're in first, they're in second. And it's just, the environment is insane. I'm sitting in the dugout going, my gosh. And at that point, every night it's just hitting like, this is freaking unbelievable. It's real. And, the pressure of, pitching and competing, it's a little different. It's a little different when you get to that
A little
level.
different.
Yeah.
That third deck they talk about in a big league park, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it most definitely.
So, couple more minutes with you here, and this has been great, and I love the conversation, and I wish you nothing but success with the boys going forward, and congratulations. Hey, we talk numbers in baseball. Julie, right?
Yes.
19, that's a number.
Yeah, that's a number.
That's a number.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. So 19 years married. Congratulations. Little rapid fire for you. So just quick answers to this. You open up your big league career with Tony Pena as your manager. You close out your big league career with Ozzie Guillen as your manager. Not many guys can say that.
No. No. Both wonderful men. Both baseball guys. And they were very specific. They enjoyed winning and competing. And, I will say this, they truly loved kids. They loved being around, it was both great environments to play for. Great. Buddy Bell was by far my favorite manager. And, I would do anything for that man, Bob McClure, LC. I can go down like Mike Mason, there's such, but yeah, very unique people though.
Meeting George Brett.
I love George to death. It's storytelling, the positivity he provided to me and Zach throughout our younger years. He was always there, right? I mean, we would call and he would talk to me and he would talk to Zach, and he took us fishing. He took us to like George is a genuine person. Like, people need to understand, and I'm sure they do. Like, he's just a fabulous human.
You say Zach, you mean Zach Greinke.
Yes.
And I did not realize you guys. I mean, yes, you're 2 years. It's you in '99, Colt Griffin in 2001, Greinke in 2002.
Yeah.
But you had a relationship. Did you ever pitch on the same staff with Colt?
No, I did not.
Okay.
He was kind of, I think he held in what, high A for a little while, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of made that jump.
Yep.
So, no. Zach
but
did.
Greinke's a friend.
Yes. I mean, me and Zach haven't talked in years. But obviously, when you play for guys and you play with guys, and basically it was me, Zach, Gordo, Risky, Luke, Hochaver, we all, I'd like to think if we were, out on a golf course, we would just,
pick up right where you left off.
I would like to think so. But yeah, I think a lot of Zach. He's and a lot of people don't understand what type of genuine human he really is.
Yeah.
So when I hear people talking, I'm like, you guys don't understand. Yeah. He's a true, genuine person with great quality, great character, and he loves his family. And it's pretty. He's a good dude. And he did well for himself.
Hall of Famer? I
think so. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, you played with guys who are kind of knocking on that door. Yes, is there a couple more?
Yeah, you'd probably have to ask me their name, but yes, I think so. I think when we look at Hall of Fame, we've got to see kind of the era they played in. What the expectations were, how they competed, and their health, their longevity throughout the course of the year, and the years that they played, along with the numbers they held, right, and the duration they held them. So I think it's a little bit different. And, I didn't, but yeah, I'm just going to stop there so I won't talk forever. But yes, most definitely.
So let's finish up two more real quick. September 10, 2001.
Yeah.
You pitched Game 5 of the Carolina League Championship Series in Salem, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you the next morning? Did you take the bus back or did you go home?
Me and Mike Natali and Jay Gerke went back to my garage apartment in Bristol and hung out. They were both supposed to fly to Scottsdale in LA. Yeah. So
they stuck around with you for a few days.
They did. And it was so surreal. I remember hearing it on the radio. And then we turn on the TV and, it was absolutely crazy. And then we're trying to find everyone, right? Because people were flying out. And I remember talking to a few different guys and getting a hold of them and hearing they were okay. And, there was a couple other guys who had to go to JFK and fly out. And, we didn't know where everybody was. So, there was a week there where it was just really silence. And then, But it was crazy. Like I said, we played that game. I didn't pitch my best, and we lost, unfortunately. And that stung. But when we got home, we chilled out. We stayed up late, and after all that took place, the guys ended up leaving that evening. Didn't even really finish the trip, and they kind of head back. But it was, I don't think that was a different. Gosh, that was hard. That was tough. That was awful. And I don't know how the coaching staff and you guys kind of took it as a whole, but it really was. It affected me a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Let's close with this. What's the office job? Where are you at? And what's the job?
State Line Wealth Advisors. So,
Okay.
I'm a financial advisor. I'm a partner at the firm, and that's what I've been doing now for a good while. And we're growing and working that route. So, I think my baseball days are numbered, which my kids are getting older. So, this is going to be my second career and what I'm looking forward to, and hopefully giving back and helping in that way as well, giving back to the community and helping on the financial side.
Well, I absolutely love catching up with you. You gave some great stuff here. And, as we were talking here in the closing minutes of like, we can do this again in the fall, and we wouldn't even broach any of these topics. We could talk spring trainings. We could go in a lot of different directions just in terms of your baseball world. And I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your stories.
Well, thanks for what you're doing. And thanks for sharing all this with your fans. And, I really appreciate getting back and talking about the minor league days and the big league days and those stories. Cause like you said, once you house them, you don't talk about them a ton, but it's really nice to get back and talk. So Steve, I truly appreciate your time.
Loved it, Jimmy. Thanks so much. All the best to you and the family.
Absolutely. Take care.
Jimmy Gobble joining us on our latest Lennox on Baseball chat. That was a lot of fun. I haven't talked to Jimmy in a handful of years. He had a guy at John Battle High School a couple of years ago who I believe is a Tennessee commit, and had him at John Battle High School in Bristol, Virginia. So I reached out to Jimmy to say, hey, what can you give me on this young man? He'll spend his senior year. I believe Jimmy said that he's going to be playing. He's at a private school in the Charlottesville, Virginia area. But we had just reconnected. And it was great to do, and saw him on social media, saw him, with his son, his oldest, Porter, going to be a senior next year, and has a chance to play college baseball. But Jimmy Gobble, here's one I'll close with Jimmy. He's a teenager in Wilmington in 2001, and a couple of years later, and I was thinking about this last night, and I don't know if it was in spring training in Arizona or if it was in the Royals clubhouse. I did a game with the Royals, Denny Matthews and Ryan Lefevre. I traveled out to Cleveland, and it might have been in that clubhouse at Jacobs Field where I saw Jimmy. So I saw him as a teenager, as a young man, as still, a teenager, skinny, awkward. He was always confident in himself. But when I saw him a few years later, and now he's a big leaguer, he was a man. And not only was he a man, and he's talking about, hey, we went to Chicago after I made my debut against the Rays, or the Devil Rays at the time, and not knowing what was going on, and, just everything going crazy. When I saw him in a big league clubhouse with the Royals a few years later after his time in Wilmington in 2001, he was a guy who it wasn't eyewash. He belonged. He knew he belonged in that big league clubhouse. He knew he was a big leaguer. And that was great seeing because, again, you saw him as a teenager, and you knew all the things that he had put into to get to the big leagues. Not only to get to the big leagues, but to stick. First as a starting pitcher, and then as a reliever. The best team that he was on during his years in the big leagues, that 2003 team, the Kansas City Royals, because after that, bottom kind of fell out. Pena was out, I think, 2 years later. You mentioned Bob Schaefer took over, then Buddy Bell. Jimmy right there quoted, right there saying, I would do anything for that man. He was terrific to me. And those are the guys who are living it. And I've always said, privy to be on minor league buses over the years, but I was still a civilian. There were two civilians on minor league buses, still to this day, the bus driver and the broadcaster. We're the civilians, the rest are the part of the team. Very fortunate to have good relationships with the managers, and that's something I took pride in over the years. Jeff Garber in my first 2 years in Wilmington, Jimmy's first year in Wilmington in 2001, a friend to this day. When you hear people like Jimmy Gobble talk about a guy like Jeff Garber, a guy like LC, Larry Carter, and the appreciation that they have years later for those men, they had the best interest of every guy on those teams in mind. You might have been the 25th guy in the club, but Jeff Garber basically, in many ways, treated you as if you were going to be in the big leagues the following year or in a couple of years. I was privy to see all of that. I was privy to see a young man as a teenager be in Wilmington in 2001 and be in the big leagues a few years later. Our thanks to Jimmy Gobble. Absolutely love that. We will continue building this roster of interviews that we do with our Lennox on Baseball chats. We are available via X at Lennox on Baseball. These interviews are on the YouTube channel. So if you enjoyed it, if you watch it, you want to pass it along to friends, please do. We always appreciate that along the way. We'll have another recap. Major League Baseball season tomorrow will be today is day number 90 of the Major League Baseball season. A recap early to Wednesday morning. And then also a reminder as well, now working with Locked On Sports. And basically every single night, within minutes of the final out of a Red Sox game, we're doing Locked On Red Sox postcast, recapping that night's Red Sox game. So tonight we will be live, Locked On Red Sox postcast. That's on the YouTube channel. It's also available as well immediately following us going live, wherever you get your podcasts as well. So we encourage you to subscribe to those Locked On Red Sox postcasts as well. Enjoyed the interview with Jimmy Gobble. Hope you did too. We'll talk soon.